Hi everyone. Um, Good to see you all this afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me here for this wonderful, wonderful afternoon. So passionately put together by ICT students. Can we hear a big round of applause for ICT for organizing this? Commendable, absolutely commendable. One more thing before I start my talk. I wanted to respond to a very passionately asked question, very discreetly answered by the audience about the gray zone. To me, and you must know that, it's the world of beauty that lies in abstraction. It's the abstraction of everything that lies within everything that's around us. That's beautiful. To me, there's nothing to look down upon that zone that's called gray zone. It's extremely, extremely challenging, but it's also very productive. So, guys, just dig into that abstraction that I think the theme of today's afternoon is. Thank you. From canvas to reality, narratives in the built form. We are architects, we build. But that's not where I am this afternoon. I'm here with you people, one-on-one. That's very important for me. My father served the government as a civil engineer. He served the central government for most of his life. He built buildings and bridges and roadways. And he had, for some reason, they used to call them government servants. I think they still do. It's pretty demeaning. But they took pride in the fact that you were a government servant. I don't know why. Anyway, that's not where we are. It was also what they called having a transferable job. Now, we grew up knowing that people around us had a transferable job, which means that someone had the authority to lift you and put you somewhere else at their whims and fancies. You needed here and so, you should go there. So he had a transferable job and his family moved with him every 3 years. His family comprised of 2 children, his wonderful wife. And then one day, I remember I was 8 and we were in Delhi. And he came home and he said, Nepal jana hai. So he said, all right, we're moving to Nepal now. So that was all very exciting for children. But I think for people who knew better, it was about the fact that there was no schooling in Nepal. It was the remote areas of Nepal that you were supposed to go to. So there was no schools and there was no formal education. And it was going to be a stint of 3 to 4 years. And so you landed up as a child in spaces like these, rural areas of Nepal, the villages where you had nothing, no civilization, cut away completely. Of course, this is a pre-internet and pre-mobile phone area, zone, but it was still away from the cities in India, and it was things like these that surrounded you all the while. So there were the villages and the fields and the cattle and the hearts, which was once a week, and all of that. And as kids, as 8 and 10-year-olds, what did you need to do? You didn't have a school to go to. You had books coming from India, and you had a tutor who would come for 2 hours in the morning, and he would be with you covering everything, from English to science to maths to the rest, social studies and what have you. Once those 2 hours are over, the days to yourself, you could be yourself doing whatever you wanted. You could run around the fields, you could play in the mud, you could learn to farm or grow, or you could just play with the cattle. All of that was happening as you were growing for the next 3 to 4 years. And I remember sites like these. Of course, these are from the internet data that we have today. We don't have pictures. People didn't used to have cameras and went about clicking what they did, especially the middle class families did not have. So we had things like these, which one grew up with for those 3-4 years. The schooling got over, you came back to India, you finished with your senior education, and then this was time to go to college. And you were toying with the idea of what needed to be done. Of course, the society and the world that you grew up in was always of the belief that you had to be an engineer. You know, there's no other way. Come on, I'm sitting here in a company of a lot of engineers, so pardon me for saying this, but then, I think even now, you just have to be an engineer. But you know what? What would life be without accidents? So I was somewhere driving in Ladakh and I read this. Accidents are prohibited on this road. Now, I do not know how much you guys make of this, but Well, thank God for those accidents, because, one day, as I was pursuing a little bit of my engineering for 2 months, I got a call. The warden came and knocked in the middle of the night, and I was already in a hostel, and he said, hey, there's a call from your dad, and he says you have to go to Roorkee, which was not an IIT then, it's an IIT now, very soon it became an IIT. He said, you have been offered architecture there. Nobody in India really knew what architecture was all about in the 80s, I need to be honest with you, and so didn't one. So the family went around asking, ye architect kaun hota hai? And he got some mixed responses. Of course, they went on to find a little more. I just packed my bags and landed up at this place called University of Roorkee then. This is the main building of our college. And I ended up there. In the next one semester, I thought that I will try what's happening. You hadn't planned for this. This is not what you had in your scheme of things, but this is what fell in your lap. Because of some recalculation of marks, and hence a little late in the academic year, you were asked to go and join architecture. The next few months, this was home, our department building, and there was a lot of fun, whether it was drama, whether it was music, whether it was dance. Please don't judge me with these images. I think these girls just managed to pick them out of these classified albums that we have. And of course, a lot of travel happened along with that. So you had things like the measured drawing trips to Fatehpur Sikri and Agra, where you were supposed to go. Don't even try to see who that is over there, which looks like anything like me. But this is where the study, the research, the freedom of being able to do what you wanted to do, the travel, all of that began, whether it's going to Chandigarh Rock Garden and sketching, or whether it is going and measuring out buildings that are built hundreds of years before you as architects. So we were doing all of that, and of course having fun in the interim, whether it was attending concerts or getting more responsible as the years went. I see pretty much that over here in this auditorium, and this is what went through a whole lot of our lives, our years over there. Of course, exploring architecture, whether it is Charles Correa and his classic architecture that was being built in the last century, Kala Academy, or Le Corbusier's architecture in Chandigarh, all of that became an exploration of the next 5 years. That fluid, abstract world that we were a part of growing up between 17, 18 to the early 20s. All of that put together, coming to an end. Of course, fun was coming to an end. Serious studies were happening, theses were happening, and you were presenting what you had put together in those 5 years, all there. And finally, it was the black coat and you were out. Once more, there were crossroads. Once more, there were decision making. Once more, you did not know what to do. My point here is that at every junction, at every juncture of your life, whether you're a child or whether you're a young person going to a college, pursuing a career, or then coming out and actually being out there in the big bad world and trying to carve a career for yourself. I'll come to the career part. Of course, I chose Bombay because Bombay was home by then. The old man was about to retire, and he said, all right, so you have a choice of going back to Delhi or Bombay. And I said, Bombay. That's what excites me. And since it was a concrete jungle to be redefined, I don't know what we've done in the last 30 years, but yeah, it was there for the thrill of architecture in this city that invited me to the city. The travels continued, of course, whether the travels to the hills, to Ladakh, to the terrains all across the country, from the north and beyond, that's Khardungla, and to the dunes of Rajasthan, or to the waters and the waters coming together at Kanyakumari. You wanted to explore the country. You wanted to see what lied in your country that you needed to see, which you hadn't as a college student. So you were doing that through your family life and through your rest of the life. All these experiences put together, I think somewhere had a sum of all of the parts that became possibly bigger than the whole. I switched to architecture. I'm an architect, so I must build. The opportunity to build is something that we all dream for. And a small little side. I'm going to run through 2-3 case studies of what one has done the last 10 years, let's say. Let me not go too much far behind. And this is a project called the Mango House, which is a small little site, about an acre, in the middle of a village in Alibag. I don't know how many of you guys have maybe had a look at the Mango House. You should try and look at that. So this is the process that went behind the very vernacular, very organic, extremely sensitive to sustainability. It just came naturally at that time, the very process, whether it's the materiality, whether it's the simplicity, whether it is the openness, whether it is relation with the context, whether it is the inside-outside connect. I don't know how many of you people out here are inclined towards the emotions that spaces eventually provide you as a living experience, as a visiting experience. But we try to put all of our sensibilities. I have tried to bring everything that I had in my life that had gone in as an input into something like this. That became one of the projects which we took internationally. We presented it. It's an award-winning project, and something which happened just very naturally, very organically, to use the term in a duplicated manner. Or a 5-element house where there was a terrain in question, there was the context in place. This is at Pauna Lake, and it warrants respecting the context. Look at the calmness, the stillness of the waters, the forts in the distance, whether it's the Tungi Fort or the Tikona Fort, or the very tranquil setting that the architecture needed to respond to. And I think the national sensibilities once again came to the fore. I do not know what I've shown you of the early part of the life actually came together, but something that told me that I need to respect the context and the elements of nature. There was the sun in its glory, there was the water out there inviting itself into the architecture. Whether it's the aspect of wind or whether it's the space, the sky, all of that became in unison. It started syncing with the architecture that started flowing out. Or the interior spaces like that, where there's a complete interaction between the inside and the outside of spaces. And you had somewhere, I think, imbibed the things which made you respond naturally. And I'm insisting on the natural aspect, what comes to you from within. It was a natural response to what the site was, what the context was. The third and the last case study is our very own studio, the place where we, the team, and us spend most of our life in Bombay. It's in the heritage district of Bombay, the art mile that we have between VT and Fort. And there our response was to respect the heritage. I don't know how many people today are invested into heritage and its restoration and respecting the history. To us, this comes extremely naturally. And when we had to respond to beautiful architecture of 120 years old to become what it was to as an adaptive reuse for today, this is how we responded as the process and this as the eventual response. The materiality, the blending with the old and making sure that it is a modern facility to ensure that the studio has its day-to-day working, and it is creative, it's productive, and it is accepting, it's responsive to what it is got around it, is how the loft, as we call our studio, has been designed. It's got the very inclusive vibe to it. We have events there like this. We have speakers coming in from all over the city and the country to come in and speak to young professionals like you. At the end of these three case studies, what I am trying to correlate here is the first part of the story and the second. Whether the design that comes out of a professional as an architect, whether it's the experience of having gone into various areas in your life, whether those life experiences, the early life experiences, along with with your influences and your exposure, whether all that becomes part of your design. This says as you start to walk on the way appears. I think I did not try to look for the way. I'm saying this personally for myself now. I don't think I started looking for a way. I think the way just appeared. You just kept accepting what came your way. You just took the next step and the next and the next. The practice today is 30 years old. I have been in the field for more than 35 years. And my journey with design is almost 4 decades. I may not look that, but yeah, that's the fact. The point here is that if you are stuck about finding something, I think you are getting just that, stuck. If we are accepting and we are extremely flexible about what comes our way, and we believe that this is how we are supposed to go forward, I think the beauty is in the journey, right? It's not the destination. The quest itself is the beauty. The life blends into its experiences, and the experience as a sum become life is what I'm trying to see if I can share with you from my own life. My life has been many experiences through the years that one has spent designing and before that shaping into becoming a designer. And I think the very aspect of trying to separate the experiences from life and vice versa is not the thing which should be invested into. I think our investment needs to be into the day-to-day experiences. And to me, when you put that together and stop questioning, but continue the quest, continue with excitement as to what's to come forward, I think that's celebration. For me, celebration of life is more important than having to find what there is in life. You need to be able to accept everywhere, everything, and every aspect of what is coming to you in order to be able to celebrate life. I hope some of this has managed to connect with you guys. Thank you. Thanks very much.